Afternoon, everybody. I've been approached in the last 5 weeks several times, and I'm sure you have, and the superintendent mentioned in our last leadership meeting that he had been approached several times, and the prevailing question out there is, what now? The bond is passed. What are you going to do? There were a lot of promises made. We heard about committees. There was just several moving parts to this entire plan. So he said, when I say he, I mean the superintendent said, Thomas, I think, you should give the board an update. And then that would give us kind of an official platform to roll out our plans, show the community what we've been up to so far, and then just our plans going forward. So let's start by recapping the revitalization plan. It's a very ambitious 10-year plan to build 9 new schools in 3 different phases. This plan is actually beginning, we're about to go into year 2. We typically look at things in terms of the physical year, but for simplicity's sake and for the sake of the public, this plan is kind of broken down by the calendar year. So year 2 will start officially in January, okay? All right, so phase 1, we were looking at just the sites and the particular bills that are in phase 1. So we've kind of nailed that down, and that has already been released by the newspaper. But I want to just kind of elaborate on each one of these things. For the special facilities project, and let me back up one more time just on the 10-year plan. So the 3 phases are broken into bond schools, which are the elementary schools, and special facilities funding, which are the junior, senior high school bills, because they are the most expensive schools to build. And our contribution for special facilities project is the same no matter the cost of the project. So for that reason, we're using bond dollars for the elementary schools, and that's the way they were advertised. And then we're seeking special facilities funding from the state for the 3 junior, senior high school. So in each phase, we'll have 1 junior, senior high and 2 elementary schools. So we are, again, in phase 1, about to start year 1 of the 10-year plan, but the 9 subsequent years officially starts in January. So in January, the clock is ticking for 9 years for this to be, all the dust will clear and there will be 9 new schools. Okay, everybody with me so far? All right, so Crescent City Junior Senior High School, over the summer, we presented to DOE, and they recommended to the state that Crescent City Junior Senior High School be completely rebuilt using special facilities funding. Of course, we have our own contribution of that, but we are essentially demolishing every building that currently sits at Crescent City Junior Senior High School, and it will be replaced with a brand new building. We zeroed in on the first 2 sites for the elementary schools, one being in Palatka and the other in Crescent City. I'll talk about the Palatka site first. The E.H. Miller is the site that we chose for the Palatka school for the first school. It's a campus that is in a great location, first of all. It has access by way of Horseman Club Road and Round Lake Road. There's lots of room on that facility, so you could have parent pickup on one side and a bus loop on the other side, traffic coming from 2 different roads. There's lots of engineering room to stack traffic on the property itself. And another really good thing about that property, whereas with Crescent City High School, it's being built in stages. One building will be built, students will move in it, then we'll demolish existing buildings, and then we'll do that in 3 different phases until it's all done. And it's really a neat process, but it doesn't come without at least some disruption and maybe some portables. That won't be the case with the first elementary school in Palatka. That campus sits completely empty right now. So we'll be able to demolish virtually everything that DOE lets us get rid of and then start from scratch and then build all that over again.
City water and sewage that goes there.
It does have city water and sewage.
I remember many years ago, the school district helped run the line out towards Kelly Smith to tie in, and I thought that we had tied in out there, so okay.
Yes, sir. And the other elementary site is also in Crescent City, along with the First Junior Senior High School. And we chose the Miller Middle site for that particular build. And that came with a lot of soul searching and looking at every option and turning over every stone we possibly could, just because that particular site has lots and lots of interest. But I'll give you our rationale for eventually landing on that site. We only own 3 pieces of property in Crescent City, and they're the 3 pieces of property that we currently have schools sitting on. The Middleton Burney site, where the current elementary school is in Crescent City, is tight. It's very tight. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to put another portable on that property, you'd have to take out an oak tree. There's just no room to build buildings and demolish. There's just not enough room on that property. And then the Crescent City site, the high school site, we're already rebuilding the junior senior high school at that location, so we don't have enough room to sit another elementary school on that property. The Miller site currently sits empty. It's had a school map on it or a school footprint for the last 100 years. We have just a simply fantastic auditorium and a gymnasium that's there. DOE won't let us build an auditorium that size, and most elementary schools don't come with a gymnasium. Those 2 facilities will be completely remodeled, refurbished. They'll be magnificent facilities, and then we'll build a new school around it. Coming back, it's our most expensive property that we own, and it's I think personally, and this is just my personal opinion, that building a new school there will go a long way to help realize the revitalization that's going on in Crescent City, particularly the downtown area. You'll have lots of people going there. We think that will create a certain amount of excitement. And it goes on and on and on, but again, that is the reason why we chose that particular location. It has too many advantages. We listened to everything that everyone had to say about maybe finding an alternative location, and we tried. But this is the property we have. It's a very desirable property, and it's going to make a great addition to the community of Crescent City, I think, when it's all said and done. All right, so phase 2, also special facilities funding. We have Interlochen Junior Senior High School that we will apply with the state for special facilities funding right about 3 years from now. Interlochen Junior Senior High is just about the same age as Crescent City Junior Senior High. They're sister schools. They were built right at about the same time using the same design plan, and they're both old and they need to be replaced. The bond funding for the next 2 schools, one will be in Palatka, and that site has not yet been determined. And then the other will be at Melrose Elementary at the current site, and it'll be built much like Crescent City Junior Senior High will, where we will build one building at a time. There is enough property at that location to actually rebuild that school in phases. All right, and then phase 3, the special facilities school would be Palatka Junior Senior High School. Palatka Junior Senior High, I think, was built in '77, so by the time we're 6 years into this process, Palatka Junior Senior High is now over 40 years old, so the custody process would allow us to do away with a lot of those original buildings that were built at Palatka High School when it was constructed. So it will be prime for special facilities funding at that time. Consequently, that's the reason why Palatka High is at the back end of this and not in one of the other places, because I've had lots and lots of people ask me, being a Palatka High School alumni, why is Palatka Junior Senior High School last? Well, it's the most current or the newest junior senior high school that we have outside of QI Roberts. That's not a part of this process at all. And for the bond schools, it will be 2 more sister schools, which would be Browning Pierce Elementary, and then Robert H. Jenkins, formerly known as Interlochen Elementary School. Those schools were built at about the same time. And they'll have some life left in them, and at that point we'll have to make some decisions on how much of that will be a remodel as opposed to complete replacement. The current plan now is to have those schools on their current sites, but there's a lot of time between now and then, so we'll see. We listen to every conversation that we get, and you know, we've discovered some really good ideas along the way, so we'll certainly continue to listen to the community as we go forward. All right, so what's next in the bond referendum now that it's passed? And one thing I do want to say about the bond referendum now that it has passed is, and I've said this again and again and again, 54% of the population of Putnam County that decided to vote in the last election approved this. And you know, and some people say 54%, that's a lot of people. Well, the flip side of that coin is 46% didn't approve. So the take home I get from all of this is you've got 46% of the population that's saying, you're ramming this down my throat, it better be good. And then you've got 54% of the population saying, we supported you, we put our faith in you, this better be good. Yeah. So my take home is no matter what, we better put our best work into this. So, you know, I tell everybody, any part of this plan that I play a part in, it will absolutely be my best work, 100% going forward. So we take this very seriously. We're not making any hasty decisions. I think we're all doing our best work, and we really, really want to get this right. So here's where we are, the next steps. So right after the bond did pass, by a slim margin in my opinion, but it did pass, we did advertise for a facilities planner, and we advertised that for about 2 weeks, and we hadn't yet gotten a suitable, I call it boat full of applicants that I think have the proper qualifications, you know, and a good pool of people to actually interview and select an applicant. So we're continuing to advertise that until filled. But we do have a backup plan, and I'll touch on the backup plan here in just a second. So we've also visited other school districts for ideas. I've been meeting with my counterparts in regions around us that's building just because they're growing like crazy, or they have their own referendum. And then there in some cases it's just 1 or 2 facilities that they're building, but they have the expertise and they have the experience that I'm seeking, because we haven't done anything like this. When I say we, I mean Putnam County as a district in quite a while. So when we were advertising this, and we didn't really advertise, but when we were informing the public of our intentions, we talked about the process of developing a BOC, a bond oversight committee, and we've developed bylaws and an application process, and I'll take a deeper dive into that in just a second. And then a design advisory committee. We also talked a lot about that, and the procedures and the application. I'll take a little bit of a dive there as well. And then we've already advertised for 2, or posted on our website, the RFP for 2 architects for the 2 elementary schools. We already have an architect for the junior senior high school. And then we're also doing an RFP for design management, and I've completed the complete scope of work for design management, but that is essentially the backup plan for the project manager, so I'm going to take some time and show you exactly what design management is all about. I have the complete bylaws and applications in your packet. I have the complete procedures and application for the DAC in your packets. I have the scope of work for design management in your packets as well. So I'm not going to go through that and read it line by line. I'm just going to give you the maybe not 30,000 foot view, but probably 15,000 foot view of those things, and then you can crawl through all of that material at your own leisure. All right, so let's start with the BOC, the Bond Oversight Committee. This is the one that we've been asked about the most. What are you going to do with this money now that you've been approved to sell bonds and get these dollars to build new schools? All right, so in the bylaws, the first paragraph of the bylaws pretty much tells you the gist of the purpose and what they're about. And the purpose of the Bond Oversight Committee is to review, monitor, and inform the public of the planning, progress, and implementation of the projects funded with proceeds from the school board's bond, as set forth by the school board resolution on March 2nd, 2021, and approved by the voters on November 8th, 2022, the general obligation bonds. The committee is established to provide transparency and instill confidence in Putnam County, in Putnam County's taxpayers that projects funded, projects. Let me read that again. The committee is established to provide transparency and instill confidence in Putnam County's taxpayers that projects funded through the issuance of general obligation bonds are being delivered according to the district revitalization plan set forth in the school board resolution. I wrote that and I've read it 8 times and I still stumble over it. But it is a mouthful. But those are the general responsibilities of the Bond Oversight Committee. There's an application process that goes along with it. And the appointment of the committee members is pulled right off of the bylaws itself. But all appointments will be made by the school board and superintendent from applications submitted to the district. We promised that these would all be residents and none of the BOC would be school board personnel, but they'll be chosen by you guys. The committee shall consist of 12 members appointed by the superintendent and the school board members from a list of candidates submitting written applications. Each of the 5 board members and the superintendent will select 2 applicants from the application pool to create the committee of 12. So you guys will get with Ashley McCool somehow. She'll get with you individually because you can't meet collectively. And you'll choose 2 members from the applications. If you pick someone who's already been chosen, you'll be asked to choose again, but you'll each have 2 selections, each of you.
Have the applications been developed?
Yes, sir. And the application itself is in your packet. They haven't been posted yet. Ashley's going to take care of all of that after the fact. I wanted to roll this out in this platform first, but they'll be online shortly.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So on the committee, will it be broken up by areas? Like, will there be a specific number for each district or each south, west, central?
They will be broken up based on your region. So the Bond Oversight Committee, and I was going to kind of elaborate on this in just a minute, but the Bond Oversight Committee is for the bond, and it will be for 3-year, and that was the next thing I was going to say. Time commitment and term. Appointments to the committee shall be for a 3-year term, and members may be reappointed to successive terms as the school board and superintendent see fit. The PCSD Bond Oversight Committee will meet quarterly per year, and then they'll also report to the board annually with a written report.
Can I ask, Holly, just clarify, are you asking, are your members selected from your district?
Yes,
Is that what you're asking?
yes.
Okay.
But
They
I
would-
think
They-
it'll be,
So with the Bond Oversight Committee, everything is done here in phases. So the Bond Oversight Committee is for phase 1, the first 3 years. That's why they're appointed for 3 years. And then we move on to a new bill. So when it comes to elementary schools, you're gonna for phase 1 anyway, you're definitely gonna want someone from probably the community of Crescent City. Now, when we get to phase 2, there won't be an elementary school or a high school being built in Crescent City. So you may want to look to Palatka or Interlochen when you're making your selection for phase 2. And then that's why you also have the ability to reappoint someone who's already been appointed on the BOC, if you'd like. You know, if it's someone relevant, that you know, if it's a Palatka person that's you know, is a prominent business person, they are well respected, they're a natural born leader in that community. And then they have subsequent schools being built, and they are interested in serving again for another 3-year term, and you as a board member see fit to reappoint them, then you can do it. They apply and you can
I feel
reappoint.
certain that we'll have a cross-section throughout Putnam County.
Yes, sir.
And everything will be, Thomas, in line, I'm certain, with SREF, state requirements for educational facilities, which now would include all the new security safeguards that come with a school, plus the shelter capacities and everything.
Yes, sir, and that's kind of touching into the Design Advisory Committee, which I'm going to touch on here in just a second. Holly, you have a clarification question before we go on?
No.
Do you want
And
to
there's a lot of information that I have here, and that's why a lot of it is included in your packet.
it's not
But
in the packet.
because you know, this is a presentation, and by default, they're usually 15 minutes or less, but I could crawl over the application if you'd like,
So
or
are
the
we
old
allowed
bylaws.
to approach people about
Yes.
applying and encourage people to apply? Okay.
Yes.
I think Mr. Leary had a
Yep.
question too.
So do you want us to wait to the end of your presentation to ask questions and make some comments, or so you can get through it?
Well, it
Not
might
necessarily. I mean, this is a presentation for you and the public, and
Okay.
certainly I'm presenting to the board. So if you'd like to jump in there,
Well,
jump in at any
If it's
time.
immediately pertinent, it would be good to ask him right now.
Yeah, I would think that there ought to be, for the oversight committee, you know, qualifications in construction management, bond finance, or, you know, I mean, we do have financial people here that do bonds and that type of thing. And so, I mean, just because they're an outstanding business person or a person in the community doesn't mean that they'll have any ability to understand and comprehend. I mean, these projects, I've been through a couple of them in other counties, and they're monumental.
Yes, sir.
And what's really important is what I would consider, you know, maybe what you're calling a facilities manager or whatever, that be a construction superintendent that would, you know, basically be in charge of all construction activities and, you know, the contractors and that type of thing.
Right, and that was my initial thinking as well, and that idea certainly hasn't gone away yet.
Okay.
I'm going to take a deeper dive in design management here in just a minute,
Okay.
and then when it comes to who you select as your selection, if you know someone who's qualified, you may want to keep that in the back of your mind. Now, if you look at the bylaws for the
It's not in the packet, so.
bylaws, okay.
Yeah, you're.
All right. So with the bylaws, there are some qualifications, but not that particular
Okay.
qualification. So if there's something that, I mean, as long as it falls within the bylaws, you're good. So anything beyond that is at your discretion.
Okay.
That answer that?
And we'll make sure, we'll get copies of them.
They've got copies of,
I think you said you
No,
didn't
sir.
have any.
Not my packet.
The application itself? No,
you
sir.
know, you should have bylaws. That says new policy 6237 at the top, Bond Oversight Committee.
I know.
Disclosure, council retainer agreement.
This is all emergency items.
Would,
obligation
Alice have that? We can just get,
That may be,
you got it? Thank you.
yeah, sorry about that.
We'll get them to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm proceeding under a false assumption that you have the packet that I have in front of me, but I have packets for each of you.
You do an excellent job explaining it, even though we don't have a packet though,
Well.
by the way.
You'll have it
So,
momentarily.
You'll have it
Well, and Phil
momentarily.
hit the nail on the head. I mean, what you have the facilities planner for is to work with this group and through the superintendent
Right.
and his designee to ensure that all this is done in the correct manner. And
So now I get why I kept getting those nods, those head shakes, no, it's not, and I'm like, I know I wrote it, it's in there, but okay. It's coming and you should have it any minute. I'm gonna press on, and then I'll backtrack and it'll make a little bit more sense. But Mr. Leary, the bylaws for the BOC does list certain qualifications, or it suggests that you do have individuals who have a background and not just people who you may be friends with. So certainly that was brought into consideration. All right, so let's move on to the Design Advisory Committee. All right, what you see presented in front of you are the procedures for the Design Advisory Committee. And the first paragraph kind of sums up their responsibilities. The Design Advisory Committee for Putnam County School District will research crime prevention through environmental design standards and principles and recommend age-appropriate designs and concepts that are most conducive for teaching and learning. The committee will meet regularly with the architects to recommend and determine the feasibility of DAC design ideas and concepts. The committee will present to the school board in a regular meeting an annual report and outline their ideas and concept and designs for the school. The committee, and I'll go ahead and talk about the application process here just a little bit. It's a little bit different. This isn't just a community committee. It's made up of community and school members. The committee shall consist of 12 members appointed by the PCSD executive leadership team and superintendent. The team will consist of 2 students, 2 parents, 2 community members, and then 2 district office staff, 2 teachers, and then 2 school administrators. And the idea here is you want to have people who, not just are concerned community members overseeing how dollars are being spent, but people who are actually practitioners as well, who know or who should have a pretty good idea of what optimal learning spaces should look like. Someone who's actually in the profession itself to have some say within this. But it's the same type model. The committee shall, well, I talked about the composition, but appointments for the committee shall be made for a 3-year term, and the members may be reappointed to successive terms as the PCSD executive leadership team and/or superintendent see fit. Each PCSD Design Advisory Committee will meet quarterly at a minimum per year, and unlike the BOC, which is a singular committee, there will be a DAC for every school, which just makes natural sense. And they'll serve for 3 years because, once again, that's the expected time it'll take to complete the build of the school. And then we'll start over again.
If I could you tell me that composition again? You said
Yes, ma'am. 2 students, 2 parents, 2 community members, 2 district staff, 2 teachers, and 2 school administrators.
thank you.
So in phase 1, Crescent City Junior Senior High School would have a
DAC.
and Middleton Burney would have a DAC.
That's correct.
Would
Somebody be on the bond elementary, the BOC and the DAC, or be on 2 DACs?
two
I
DACs?
wouldn't.
No.
I don't think there's anything in the rules that say you couldn't, but we're not talking about a ton of people here, and that just gives different people opportunities to be a part of the process. I definitely wouldn't do that. Thank you, Mr. Hestrom. I appreciate that. And did you get that from Alice?
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you, Randy.
I thought they were already placed up here ahead of time. But what you have in your packets are, and I have one just like it here. You've got the PowerPoint, you've got the bylaws for the Bond Oversight Committee. You have the Design Advisory Committee application, and then you have the Design and Management Services scope of work. All right, I'm gonna press on. All right, so I promised a closer look at what we mean by design management, and it's kind of it's almost a backup plan, if you will. If we don't get a project manager, I think we'll be okay. But we're still advertising for a project manager, so we may end up with both. And I kind of hope we do. But at a very minimum, I think we should be going this route. And this idea was first presented to me as I was visiting some of my counterparts. Actually, it was my counterpart in Duval County who recently passed a referendum for sales tax, which is very significant there because of their tax base. But they're essentially replacing schools and enhancing safety and security. And they have, he showed me everything they were doing and the specificity of everything that they were doing, and it just blew me away. And I felt like I was walking out of a mom and pop store into this, this grand place that has their stuff together, and I felt tremendously underqualified. But then I said, "Did you create that?" And he said, "Good Lord, no." And he said, we have we contract with essentially someone for design management, and so I wanted to take a really deep dive on exactly how that works. So I've got the complete scope of work, and I'm going to use, and that's in your packet, but it'll be infused into an RFP for someone to help us with that. But it's not an additional funding source. It's essentially a portion of what you would pay for architectural services anyway, and then you would shave off a little bit of or a small percentage of that to do this work, and it's not someone who's essentially on the payroll, no salary and benefits. So let's talk about.
You can contract with a contractor, with an architect or an engineer to represent the school, with respect to the construction process.
That's exactly right.
And that might be the best bet.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So in addition to that, this is an opportunity to develop district standards that will be invaluable to the maintenance department going forward. The district can have continuity with all HVAC, electrical, low voltage, security, door hardware, interior finishes throughout the district. Furthermore, there may be an opportunity for bulk purchasing, since the district will be direct purchasing most of the items to realize tax savings. The design manager shall provide conceptual site plans and building layouts. This determines if a school fits on a particular site and establishes how buses and cars will circulate on the site. This information will be used to determine proper site selection for future projects, particularly the next Palaca build. But one of the largest advantages to me is the design manager provides monthly status reports to the district and the board that includes project status updates for the design and construction of all ongoing projects, including schedules with anticipated milestones versus actual milestones, and the cost of the projects compared to established budgets. Let me give you a example of what I'm talking about. All right, so this is an excerpt from Duval County's quarterly progress report. We're asking for monthly progress reports, and theirs is very comprehensive, and I didn't pull all of it out, but I did pull just a few pages out so you could kind of get the gist of it. It has everything from contract awards and activations. It has a 3-month look ahead with all of the projects listed. It has the financial status of the projects, the revenue collected, revenue projection, budget changes, et cetera, et cetera. That's all Rhonda's world. Here it's planning, funding, and distribution. Your first big, I guess, graph or circle graph up there to the left, theirs is broken down into a region. I could very easily see one of those colors representing the E.H. Miller Elementary School, one of those colors being the Miller Elementary, and then the other being the Special Facilities, Crescent City Junior Senior High School. Their other is, it talks about whether it's being allocated to safety and security, or if it's replacing a building, I can very easily see us doing something for a demolition versus new builds, and then the funding source that's being used to fund those projects. What'd I do?
Just wanted to read.
Okay, I guess so. It's back. All right, and so master program schedule, project stages, everything from procurement, design, et cetera, demolition. And then it's each school site or each particular project has its own page. It not only has an image of what the final outcome is supposed to look like, there's typically an image of what it looks like right now in real time. There's general information there, approval milestones, schedule, scope, project status, and then there's always the financial component that's listed down on the bottom. And then at the very end, there's a district dashboard that would have a summary of projects, funding, schedules, project maps, accessibility. It not only tells what's coming up, it gives where we should be at in a project based on where we are. And then it gives you a snapshot of how the dollars are being spent down to the literal penny in real time, which is something that any citizen could go to our website and access the information and see exactly where we are on all of our projects and exactly the progress we've made and how much money we've spent in real time, and stay that informed. All right, so what have we done so far as we get ready for construction? And this is kind of wrapping it up. Travis Woods is out working right now, completing the detailed custody reports for the E.H. Miller site and the Miller Middle site, and that's to determine which buildings will stay and which buildings will go. We've already gotten the recommended sites for phase 1 of the project, and I've covered that already. We're in the process of either doing or about to have topographical surveys for each site. That was instrumental in doing away with a couple buildings that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do away with in Crescent City because the soil was bad down there. Hazard survey for each site. And that's typically asbestos abatement. We intend to start that process in about March at both sites. As a matter of fact, the E.H. Miller, since it's not occupied by anyone right now, may happen a little bit before then. Geotechnical report, and that's where we take a look at the composition of the soil and materials to make sure it's adequate for new construction or if it's going to need any type of remediation. A demolition plan for each site and a timeline for that. And then again, conceptual plan for each site. And that will come as soon as we get design management in place. And again, we intend to post that RFP sometime this week. All right, that's all I got. Any questions?
I do. Specifically with the Melrose Elementary, you mentioned rebuilding there. Couple of questions. One has to do with the gymnasium. Is that going to be affected?
Absolutely. There's no way we're getting rid of that gymnasium down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a beautiful gym, and that community is very proud of that gym. I've spoken to a lot of community members who have lots and lots of memories in that gym, and that's one of the recurring themes and the recurring requests that I've heard again and again. If we're having a school here, which I know we are, can we keep this gym? And of course, it will be completely renovated. It will look as it looks, but new.
And the rest of the buildings that are on the elementary school campus?
Most will go.
Most will go.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Mr. Bowling, I just had, I hope a clarification and just a question. So when, back at the beginning of your presentation, you said that the access to the E.H. Miller School would be Highway 19 and Round Lake Road, but you meant Davis Lake Road, right?
Davis Lake Road and Horseman's Club.
Horseman's Club, I'm sorry. Right.
Davis Lake, you're right. I did say Round Lake, and I get them mixed up.
That's
But
okay.
yes, sir, it's Davis Lake.
So I
Thank
was
you.
talking to the superintendent a few weeks ago about possibly us retaining an easement off of 19 directly into the site. Is that still something that they're going to be looking at?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. We don't have it yet, but that's something we are looking into.
And that's, and I think along with those, I remember the conversation, we want our architect, whoever the architect is, to look at that and look at traffic and all that, because, especially on Horseman's Club, that could be an issue with the traffic coming off of Davis Lake. So that's something we want them to look at and just give us some advice on.
Well, and hopefully we'll hire as much these folks that come in and do construction will hire as many local people as they can to do this project.
Back to a fellow I met with at Duval. He showed me where they have embedded in some of their RFPs the local talent has to be used.
You know,
He has that language
I'd like to
engineered,
see us
just
consider
a
that.
certain percentage of it anyway.
We've done that in the past in construction projects in past years. I don't know if the laws have changed. That's something that lawyers would have to advise us on. But I mean,
That's something that's very attractive sounding to me as well, and I hope it's doable and feasible, and we're able to stay on track, and there's available talent,
Yes.
We're actually filling that with our Building Construction Academy
right?
into Larkin Junior Senior High School. So hopefully
There
we'll
you
be
go.
turning those graduates out.
That sounds good.
Time to
There
start
you
working
go.
there.
And a follow-up question on the traffic circulation, transportation aspect. In Crescent City, part of that will be looking at, bus route, parent pickup and that type of thing with respect to that, because I guess it's, as a professional land use planner, there's obviously community schools are what you want, but this is going to be a big community school.
Yes, sir. It
900
is.
students.
It is.
Yeah, so that's going to be important from the standpoint of developing downtown or redeveloping, Crescent City, that, those transportation and traffic circulation issues that will have to be, addressed.
Absolutely, and I was having a conversation again with Travis a couple days ago, and he brought up the exact point you're making right now. The architect is going to have to earn his money on that site down there in terms of stacking traffic
They will-
and engineering all
They
of
will
that.
love doing that, trust me.
Yes, sir.
And we've actually had a number of conversations. I know you've been talking to the mayor and the city manager down there. So yeah, we're definitely trying to stay on the pulse of that.
To make sure nothing that we do interferes with any projects they have moving forward with revitalization of downtown, particularly when it comes to liquor license and everything else. If there's a way we can engineer or even help them out with a little bit of property to make all of that become realized, we're certainly open to do what we can.
And it won't impact the existing licenses that are there. I mean,
Well, if anything, we're trying to open up possibilities for
Right.
things that they don't currently have.
right.
Any other questions for Mr. Bowen?